Now, as we know, the end of last year wasn't fantastic for the Prime Minister for all the most obvious of reasons. He was in a world of pain because of the way he had promised the Australian electorate back in 2022 that literally everything would be cheaper under a Labor government. Reality was cost of living continued to be a significant issue and will continue to be a massive one for us again this year. Now, of course, there was the Airbus Albo business where, despite the fact that they tried to carry the one and pretend this one didn't count, he was a Prime Minister who loved flying overseas on Toto One. Remember the nickname that he has given to the Prime Ministerial jet? And then there was, of course, $450 million being spent on a question that Australia didn't just answer no, it answered hell no on it when it comes to The Voice. But emblematic of this was that the Prime Minister, this was his true want for last year. Well, now, with cost of living still being a problem, The Voice not existing right now, and the Australian public starting to turn, there was a great need for something to change during this summer. But of course, that hasn't happened. When it came to the polling couldn't have been clearer at the end of last year, and it's starting to show its head again at the start of this year, where voters were saying that everything was getting worse except the China relationship, and the Labor's primary vote, according to the latest YouGov poll at the end of last year, was the lowest since 1901. Yet the expectations are that because of the Teals, it would be very difficult for the Liberal Party to get anywhere near 76%. So the political debate about 2024 is about whether the government goes early for an election, like most first-term governments do, and as a result of that election, will it stay in a majority of just a couple of seats, or will it be forced into minority? If it is forced into a minority, then of course the tail that wags the dog, to continue the Toto metaphor here, is none other than the Teals and the Greens. But what about that reset? Not the great reset that they talk about over at Davos as they plan to meet again to tell us how the world should work, but the reset of a new calendar year. Moving into 2024, the expectations were that we'd forget all the problems of last year and everything would feel a whole lot better because we were now in a brand new year and there was a new focus and everyone wasn't as cranky as they were last time. Well, as you may have heard, a big poll, front page of the newspapers yesterday, showed that Australian voters say that Anthony Albanese is no help with the issue that remains the number one issue in the country, and that is cost of living. Now, I can't pretend that the monthly inflation rate has not gone down. Electricity and petrol still too high, but inflation is about where it was the best part of 2 years ago. But still, the reality of what the numbers tell us and what you are living is why these polls are the way that they are. With 51% of Australians saying that the country is headed in the wrong direction. That's the same findings that have been in places like the Turnbull Times via the Essential poll. 74% of people saying that cost of living is the number one issue. 81% of people saying that the government has not done enough about cost of living, despite the fact that they constantly tell us, oh, yes, we have, please believe us, yes, we have. 68% of people don't think anything's going to get better in the next 6 months either, and 51% of people have believed what we have said for 10 years, that the cost of transition to the new dream of green is going to increase their power bills. But one thing that inevitably happens as we roll into Christmas, we laze about during the new year and we slowly but surely return to work. Some people in the first week of January, some in the second, some will get back there around Australia Day. And of course, if you happen to be working in a university, you'll be back in March. But there is one thing that always happens, which is that governments love to roll out bad news when they hope no one is looking. So my way of looking back at what they tried to hide from us this summer is to reference a movie from about 20, 30 years ago. Who knows? It's an old movie, but it's called I Know What You Did Last Summer. If you've seen the movie, you know what it's about. Otherwise, you just need to know that the bad guy is going after the good people because of what they did last summer. So our version of this, just to annoy the lefties on night one, is I know what you said this summer. And here's 5 things that you need to know that took place over summer when you were either on holidays or they were hoping that you weren't paying attention. First, we got a report in late December about just how much money politicians spend on themselves. And the answer is millions and millions of dollars. But interestingly, we also finally got some numbers about just how much money the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister have been spending on private jets. Well, according to the Department of Defence, they released these numbers that finally tell us about their use of private jets. Now, they refer to it as a whole bunch of other things, but as for the cost of Airbus Albo, the Department of Defence has released politician spending on VIP flights, revealing that Anthony Albanese spent $3.3 million, count them, $3.3 million in the financial year that has just passed. But then, as we know, there's the frequent free flyer, Richard Marles. Now, Richard Marles represents the seat of Corio, that is in and around the area of Geelong. But because he doesn't want to go to Melbourne Airport, or he doesn't want to use the flights that fly out of Avalon Airport to almost anywhere in the country, he has private jets fly him around. Now, finally, we've got a number about just how much money the Deputy Prime Minister has been spending on the planes that are just for himself, because they are more convenient, not more secure. Private airlines, or dare I say public airlines, are quite secure. Not a known series of problems there, but still. Marles apparently spent $2.1 million on VIP flights in that financial year of July 1, 2022 to June 30, 2023. Now, I noticed a few smart Alecks saying, well, that's way below what you were talking about on television last year. Yes, there of course was plenty of reporting that apparently the number was $3.6 million, but it now turns out that the reality of the final number is $2.1 million, as if that's magically better. Now remember, the Defence Minister has a right to a private jet to be able to fly to the places that are not serviced by commercial jets. He has the right to be able to do it for national security reasons, but the reality is that, as has been proven, many, if not most of his flights were actually out of Avalon, where he could have caught Jetstar, Virgin, Qantas, anything else, Bonza if he wanted to. But no, it wasn't as convenient for him. So he got the private jets, $2.1 million worth. Remember, all that information last year that they tried to say was national security, and that's why we couldn't possibly know about it. Well, it all finally came out, but it all came out while they hoped you were in the pool or hanging around a barbecue.